For how much longer will Africa allow the world to dictate the direction of Africa? Personally, I don't see these things as mutually exclusive. I don't see the world in a binary sense, and I certainly don't believe in a zero-sum game. It doesn't follow for me that for Africa to do well, the rest of the world doesn't have to do well. That's not how I see the world. I think we can do well in tandem, but the question I'm asking is, are we doing well? Are we truly innovating? Are we contributing to the global ecosystem of technologies and innovations that are going to fundamentally change the lives of people? When I landed here in my room, I had to take a call with one of our portfolio companies, an incredible business run by a young man who comes from Uganda. Anybody here from Uganda? Any Ugandans in the room? Beautiful, beautiful country. If you've never been, highly recommend you go. You land in Entebbe, and as you land in Entebbe, you see the entire flora that is not only the forestry around Entebbe, but also the water that surrounds the airport. And between Entebbe and Kampala, you get into your car and you make your way into Kampala, the town. It's not dissimilar to landing in Motala Airport and making your way into VI. Of course, they obey the traffic laws. So I'm going to keep coming back to this traffic laws thing because I don't understand it to this day. And here's how my brain works. So my brain is a mathematical brain. When I look at things, I try to understand statistical averages. As I stood here, I've tried to count, for instance, the number of people sat width by depth and try to get an estimation of how many of us are in this room. Just statistical averages. Then I'm wondering how many networks are we running? How fast are those networks? How many of us here are transmitting data? And therefore, what's the average use of data per second that all of us are transmitting? Just standing here. This is how my brain works. So when I land in Motala Airport and I'm making my way to Victoria Island and I notice that there are 5 lanes on the freeway but 15 lanes in driving, my brain immediately goes, how does this system actually works? And here is the beauty of what the rest of the world can learn from us, is that for us, chaos and complexity not only is a way of life, but actually is a way of contributing in life. To the rest of the world, it looks chaotic. To Vusi, who grew up in Joburg and understands fairly Eurocentric rules, for instance, rules like, listen to this, Nigerians, you're going to love it, when the traffic light is red, the idea is to stop. That's an instruction, it's not a recommendation. This has been playing in the back of my mind. Then I traveled to a beautiful place like Uganda, for instance, and I noticed they have these little tuk-tuk bikes called bodabodas. Any of you here who have traveled to East Africa will know what it is that I'm talking about. And these bodabodas are always just within an inch of a collision or an accident, but the accident never takes place. Now, for those of you here who are mathematically inclined, you could calculate the statistical average and therefore the proclivity for the accidents to happen. The idea that there are hundreds of thousands of bodabodas on the road every single day, doing hundreds of thousands of kilometers every single day, coming into contact with hundreds of thousands of other bodabodas on the road every single day, in a road where there's hundreds of thousands of road users every single day, all making their way to a few limited number of destinations. And yet, even though there is an incidence within an inch of a collision never actually takes place. To the rest of the world, this is a miracle. To us, we call it Africa. And I think, entrepreneurs, it is exactly this spirit that we contribute to the rest of the world, in particular those of us who see ourselves as citizens of the global South. I got back to my conversation yesterday with Dr. Umal. He runs an incredible business. It's a health business, a health tech startup in Uganda. He's now based in the United States. And when he first moved to the United States, he wanted to practice as a doctor. And he had several challenges, not the least of which is that there are certificates that you've got to get and all sorts of exams you've got to write before you're allowed to practice in medicine based on where he passed and the environment he wanted to work in. And so he asked himself, how do I contribute to my homeland back home? And one of the things he thought he would do is he would start and build a business that would offer emergency medical services in Kampala. Now, for those of us who have traveled to Kampala, Lagos, and Nairobi, these stories are similar. The traffic is such that it's very, very difficult for you to even attempt to launch an emergency medical business in a place like this. So how does he do it? He starts thinking about using technologies, for instance, that would allow him to not only navigate the traffic, but also to tell the conclusion of traffic and therefore enable people to access medical services. He starts thinking, for instance, about how do you get medical personnel to move from one part of the city to another. when in the middle of the day, by any account, there's almost always traffic. That chaos is what forms the bedrock of what he uses as his innovation. So, entrepreneurs in the room, if we are to build businesses that are going to be globally relevant and scalable, what are the things we might think about doing? Where might we start? What are the to-dos? What is necessary? I will start here by saying something that I imagine nobody else has said in the gatherings in this room here today or in the panel sessions, which is this: build a personal brand. Now notice, I didn't say anything technical. I said nothing about what school you should go to, which new certificate you should get, whether or not you should learn about technology. I said build a personal brand. And here is the reason why you want to build a personal brand. A personal brand in 2024 is arbitrage. It gets your head well above the parapet. It gets you noticed, it gets you seen, and it creates a traffic of opportunities that flows to you and not the inverse. When you have built a personal brand, your phone rings, you're not the one making phone calls. When you have built a personal brand, when you're sitting in a balance of probabilities where you either could or could not get funding, could or could not get that meeting, could or could not make an appearance at the conference, it is your personal brand that marches your name just slightly over the line. So building a personal brand then is not just about getting a number of followers on social media or being an influencer. It's about being so deeply technical in what you do that you are considered a subject matter expert in your field. And I suspect that this is a challenge for many of us. Many of us know what I like to call the virus of just enough. Just enough that you can get by. Just enough that you can appear an expert. Just enough. In today's world, the internet has made the world flat. Today, you can hire people and resources in any part of the world and connect to them with nothing more than a www address. I think about my own business. Let me give you guys a personal story in a sense, if I can. Until 2020, my entire business was fully South African. Today, my head of brand is in Ghana. My head of protocol, who's with me here today, is from Zambia. My head of sales and marketing is Filipino. My head of finance is from Pakistan. My head of IT is from India, where I just was a fortnight ago. And these are just the team members I can think about at the top of my head. The internet has completely flattened borders. Ladies and gentlemen, shall we all stand and acknowledge His Royal Excellency? Thank you. You may be seated. His Royal Excellency, welcome. To those who don't come from our culture, that might appear a rude introduction. For those of us who do, you recognize that there is a hierarchy of how events are conducted, and we're honored to be joined by His Royal Excellency. Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you. You would have noticed the remarks at the end as they were throwing their hands there. You can imagine it was, Honorable Doctor, Africa's tallest man. I absolutely love how Nigerians have the most incredible ability to just absolutely exaggerate everything. Biko, I beg, Biko, I beg, eh? I'm cognizant of our time, so I'll press on. So the first thing I said here is build a personal brand. The second thing I want to add here, the most important skill you will develop as an entrepreneur is not the ability to raise capital or put together a fantastic deck. It isn't even the ability to do a market testing and come to an MVP fairly quickly. The most important ability you can develop as an entrepreneur and as an executive is the ability to communicate and communicate effectively. For those of us who have not yet learned this, it's a fundamental skill I would like for you to begin to invest in yourself. Learning to communicate. And learn to communicate not off the base of what you want, but off the base of what you offer to the rest of the world. It'll open more doors for you than you might even imagine. It'll bring you into the rooms you didn't even know existed. It'll get your name mentioned in quarters of powers and influence where you didn't know somebody can make a difference for your life. So learn to communicate effectively. The third thing I want to say, mind your words. I speak in particular to the younger people in the room here today. There are some of us, certainly when I was younger, I had the opportunity to be young and stupid. In other words, I could say things that don't follow me today. I'm 39 now, so I'm 5 to 40, which means I'm old enough to be analog and young enough to be digital. For the younger people in this room, you don't have that benefit. You are communicating your thoughts, your ideas, your values from the earliest digital devices that you're connected to. And what you don't understand, and I say this with as much humility as I possibly can, what you don't understand is that the internet never forgets. The thing you said when you were 15, lying in your bedroom, looking up into the stars or at the ceiling, is the thing that'll follow you when you're 35 trying to raise capital. I've been seized for the past 3 months looking for an executive assistant. We went through 80 different qualified candidates until eventually my COO said, actually what we're going to do is we're going to promote somebody internally because we cannot trust any of the candidates we found. Because we do that level of testing. There are some of you here who think you can create a pseudonym or a fake account on Twitter. There are actually softwares that we use that if you have a fake account on Twitter, your IP address and where you're using it from will tell me exactly who you are. Just with a fake account on Twitter, I will tell you your name, your social security number, your bank account, your bank balance, all the registered properties in your name. This is the level of information we can get. And guess what? If you're me, this is necessary. Because the infiltration for the things God has put in our minds, the ideas we're working on, these things we're here to deliver on earth, happens internally. If we recognize, for those of us who are believers, that we are sent by an Almighty to do good work, we must recognize that there is an enemy who's trying to stop us from doing that good work. So we can't be reckless with our calling. Which means I test each and every single one. And the most important is the person who follows me. It's my executive assistant. It is shocking the things you find. Political statements made in the heat of an end SARS movement that you didn't know would follow you today, they follow you. Silly remarks you made about a trend that was happening when something controversial might have happened in a country very few people, Africans, had ever heard of. I imagine a country like, let me think, Equatorial Guinea. We don't need to talk about what was happening. But the point is, the laughing hands know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, you see, you are the ones I'm talking about. Mind your words, because they will follow you. You see, power, influence, and capital moves in silence. Said differently, if you are loud, you don't get invited to the room. And so I want to encourage, especially the young people in this room, mind your words. The way my mother used to say it was, if you have nothing good to say, say nothing. Silence is an option. The fourth thing I want to share with you, the incredible asset of learning to show emotional intelligence. Not just to have emotional intelligence, but to demonstrate it, to actually show it, to empathize with somebody on the other end of the divide. You know, the fundamental difference between sympathy and empathy is if I am sympathetic, then I sympathize with what you're experiencing, but if I am empathetic, then I allow myself a moment to experience it as you have. And for so many of us, the world is moving so fast that we don't pause ourselves and give ourselves the opportunity to show some emotional intelligence. I was showing some emotional intelligence with some of our co-speakers who are Nigerian yesterday when they were telling me about what the Naira has done. It's tough for you guys. It's very rough. Me, I sympathize. But you deserve it. Yeah, you deserve it. Yeah, no, you deserve it. Because you went to Hollywood and told Hollywood that you guys have the best musicians. Let me be clear. I just want to clear a few things up. Hold on. Don't get offended yet. Let me just clear a few things up. And allow me to let my South African in me come out a little bit. Comrades, South Africa has the best musicians in Africa. No, it's true. Go argue with their ancestors. I don't care. South Africa has the best currency in Africa. There we go. And then most important, we also have the best soccer team. Argue with your ancestors, I don't care. Super Eagles, you mean Super Chickens? When was the last time they won anything? Now, to any of our European brothers and sisters, when you come up here, don't make these jokes. This is purely an African thing. Which brings me to my last and final point. When I was growing up, I had competition with my siblings. And even though we competed, it was healthy. We would compete on who got the best grades. We would compete on, for instance, who got the best sporting accolades. Naturally, as I imagine my personality has demonstrated by now, I won every year. It should be said that I'm a middle child. That is to say, middle children have a hunger for attention. We don't get the love of the lastborn, nor do we get the acclaim of the firstborn. And so the only way we get attention is we outcompete. All the middle children are smiling right now. The lastborns are still trying to figure out where in the program are we. Now, when I was growing up, I competed with my siblings. It was healthy competition. It was competition intended to push us, to make us better, to make us show up for the world better. I want to encourage Africans to do the same. We should be competing. My worry is that our competition in the modern day has taken on a rather insidious turn. We're competing even about things we shouldn't be competing about. And rather than competing to make each other better, we're competing to prove each other worse. So hear me and hear me now. I don't, as a South African, need Nigeria to fail for South Africa to win. Quite the inverse. I need you to win. Because you are a market of 250 million people for whom I could sell my products, my services, and my wares. And I want to challenge all of us here who are part of this global community to help all of Africa recognize that Africa can rise as one. That it is necessary for us to support each other, to compete with each other, but to keep that competition healthy, to keep that competition well-meaning, to keep that competition fair. And if it is healthy, well-meaning, and fair, the result will always be South Africa winning. We live in a world that is in the middle of turmoil and conflict. And I see way too many of us entrepreneurs throwing our hats into the ring. And so I will conclude with this personal story. The other day, I was in the Emirate of Sharjah. They are partners of ours. And we were making a particular announcement. And so I'm sat next to His Royal Highness, and he and I are having a conversation about this particular announcement that we had to make. And in the middle of this, they had invited myself, Grant Cardone, some of you here might know him, and an incredible creative called Chris Du from the US. And so at the back, Chris and I are sitting on the back on the green room having a conversation. And I asked Chris, I said, you know, I follow your stuff. I love your content. I love every single thing that you do. I said, but man, all the years I've followed you, you are now with 3 million subscribers on your YouTube channel, etc., etc., etc. I have never seen you make a political statement. I said, why? And here's what Chris said. And he said it to me, and I've been meditating on it, and I will leave it with you here. He said the following. He said, if you want to be a force for good, then choosing sides is not an advised strategy. I said, explain this to me. He said, in the US, there are 2 major parties, right? So whichever side I choose, I alienate 50% of my community. Which is to say, how do I transform and change people's lives when I have already alienated them? There is a fundamental difference between the things you say and believe in private and the things you represent when you wear the hat of a CEO of a company. There are things I believe that I would not dare say because I recognize that my mouth is currency, that the things I say influence my laborers and the people in our team's lives. They influence the portfolio companies where God has graced us to have interests. They influence all of the territories where we do business. They influence those things. And so when I recognize that my mouth is currency, I'm cognizant that my thoughts can shape direction. So the trick is this. Stand on principle, but remain neutral. Standing on principle means recognizing what you stand for and acting for what you stand for. Remaining neutral means not trying to convert other people, because that's not your job. Your job is to create value, to build a balance sheet, to innovate, and to transform lives. And to do these things, you need to reach to everybody, even those across the divide. I want to say to the good doctor and the board, my sister, Mamo, Norma, and everybody else on the board, thank you so much for the invitation for me to be here. I'm truly honored and privileged that you've invited me and seen me fit to share the stage with some of the illustrious speakers that you have in this gathering. I want to say to the other speakers who are on the program, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules, for traveling into sunny Africa, and most importantly, into very, very warm Akure. You know it's warm when a black man is sweating. It's hot. No, it's hot. It's hot. And lastly, there's somebody in this room who's on the verge of giving up. There's somebody in this room who's thrown everything they have at it. There's somebody in this room who's tried everything. You've called in every favor. You've invested money even you don't have. The product is not working. The market is not turning out. The customers are not coming. The funders aren't answering the phone calls. And you're sitting here in a gathering and they've got some guy in a blue suit telling you to mind your words. I came here today to talk to that specific person. And I came to tell you this. The difference between those about whom history is written and those who write history is that those about whom history is written do it even when it was not possible. I myself don't come from a family of wealth. I don't come from privilege. When I started my first business, I went and rented an office. 3 months later, I couldn't afford to pay for the office, couldn't afford to pay for my car, couldn't afford to pay for my staff. I had the bank call me, say they want to repossess the car. It's a beautiful financial term, which means you thought you owned it, but actually we do. If I had given up then the past 20 years that God has graced me with would not have been possible. And I came to say to specifically that person who's on the verge of giving up, that as long as you have air in your lungs and a fire in your belly, as long as you have a God that guides you and something you're told you must deliver to the world, you have a responsibility, not just to yourself, but to this generation, to make it happen. Because our success is a communal success. See, for the rest of the world, they have so many successes, they can pick and choose. For us, there are so few of us that when you succeed, we all succeed. And so I want to encourage in particular that young person in this room who's on the verge of giving up. Remember this word, don't. When you're at the edge and you want to give up, don't. When it feels like it's all failing and you should just stop, don't. When your friends who love you and your parents who care for you deeply are telling you it's not going to work, it will. So whatever you do when it comes to listening, don't. I'm humbled that you've invited me here. I'm going to hand back now to the event organizers. Thank you so much, everybody, for the opportunity to speak here.